Because in the city mode, everything is symmetrical, everything is mathematical, everything is methodical, and when you come into nature, everything is organic, it's flowing, it's fluid, it's curved, as opposed to the linearity and all the thousands of protocols that you follow in the city, the rules, the bylaws, the laws. None of that exists out here. So you're coming from a reality that's broken up into tiny different pieces that you have to put together, that you've been conditioned and trained to put together, and then you come out here to this sea of green, this seamless, continuous flowing of energy that you see here. And I'm going to use that word energy because that's what it is. If you had the right set of eyes, that's what you would see. Hi folks, Canadian Prepper here. I just wanted to talk a bit more freely today about something I've been thinking about with regards to the gray man in the bush. I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with the gray man philosophy. It's basically blend into your surroundings, right? In an urban environment, of course, that depends on a variety of different variables: where you live, who you live around, the culture of that particular area. But in the wilderness, it's a totally different story. And I think about, the Native American people, as we know them in Canada, the Aboriginal or First Nations people who resided in this area. And by this area, I mean the entire boreal forest. And I think about their manner, their demeanor in the bush. And it's very much a gray man philosophy. I've heard it once said before that, if camouflage worked, if real tree camo worked, all deer would have real tree camouflage fur. All bears would be camouflaged, all animals would be camouflaged. And as to the best of my knowledge, some animals are colorblind, so the whole visual camouflage is only one aspect of what it means to be in the bush. And I should first off say that I'm by no means gray man in the bush. I have a white shirt on to reflect the sun's light, to keep the bugs away. I have a red hat on. My mannerism and my dress in the bush are not really gray man. I can be a little rough sometimes. But I do, before I go into the bush, and you can call me superstitious, you could call it irrational, that's okay with me. Maybe it's only a placebo effect. But I typically smudge before I go in the bush. And no, this is not marijuana, it's sage. Before I go on a long trek, I have a challenging trek coming up in the next 3 days where I'm going to be testing out the monowalker on very steep terrain. It's a hike that, it's 45k. Otherwise, it wouldn't be that big if I wasn't testing out a new device and carrying a very large payload. And I'm actually doing the trail in the opposite direction that you're supposed to do it in, so my elevation gain, the net gain, is going to be a lot larger than it would be had I went the way that everybody else is going. But I do these things to challenge myself, because I know without challenge, without sacrifice, I can't grow. I can't get stronger as a person. And I was just had the privilege of sitting in a steam room here recently. I'm in Jasper, and there's a nice steam room in town. And I was talking to some guy about bears, and I just told him, because he was kind of talking it up as, yeah, you got to be careful, and really, talk about all the negatives of wildlife encounters and stuff like that. Stuff I've heard before, obviously. But, I just told him, before I go into the bush, I always, especially for a long hike, I make sure I let them know that I'm not here to interfere, that I'm just passing through and I mean them no harm. And you could call that superstitious, you could call it whatever, but in a lot of ways, I've had some encounters with wildlife in the past, and I can't explain why it did not escalate, you know. So it's almost as if something's watching out for me, you know, and I take that, I don't take that for granted at all. I'm very grateful for, you know, whatever it is, whatever force is looking out for me out there. And I see a lot of animals, and you could call me superstitious again, but I do kind of see them as omens. You know, when I see an animal in the woods, I think it's symbolic. You know, the first day of my trip this year, I seen an eagle, not a bald eagle. I can't remember what kind of eagle, like a golden eagle or something like that. And, you know, then I seen a buffalo up close, a couple buffalo actually, really up close, wild buffalo in Elk Island National Park. And I seen a rabbit, and I seen a deer like within 10 feet. And, you know, they're omens, you know. You got to take it as a sign almost. And I'm usually on the trail pretty early, so I'm the first one there before all the tourists get there. So I see these things, you know. But I always make a point to just send out a vibe that, hey, you know, I'm just passing through. You know, I mean you no harm, whoever is out there watching, because chances are, you know, when you walk down a trail, if you could get an aerial view in infrared, you'd see a bunch of orange spots around there walking around, maybe 15, 20 meters off the trail from where you are at any given time. So it's good to just be appreciative, and that's why I smudge. And it's a Native American tradition to use sage and sweetgrass. It's also practiced around the world in a variety of different cultures. Sage is a renowned tool for spiritual use. Now, whether it has any effect whatsoever is subject to debate. You know, I'm willing to dignify that, you know, that it very well could be totally superstition and unfounded in anything in reality. But for me, it's meaningful. And I think, you know, I guess the point of this video is I got started off with the gray man stuff. And, you know, the Native American philosophy is to leave no trace, you know, is to not see yourself as transient, passing through the wilderness. Rather, you see yourself as a part of the wilderness. And it's something, of course, I don't always do, and maybe I do this in order to compensate for that, because I understand that that's what I should be doing, and it's something I'm working towards. And I see a lot of my bushcrafting brethren who really do exemplify this in the best way, in that they blend in to the surroundings. You know, they don't need real tree camo and mil spec woodland camo, I think that's what it is. But you know, they don't need that stuff. They just blend in like a deer blends in, you know, to the grass. You don't see it until you see it, and it's 20 feet away, and you spooked it, and it's off, you know. So it's just kind of having that respect for your surroundings is going to allow you to blend in and not seeing yourself as outside of it, but seeing yourself as a part of it, as one with it. And I'm not trying to be, you know, all wishy-washy and new age with this oneness talk, but you know, we really are. We're of the earth. We're organic beings, just like everything else that you see around me here, and we need to respect our symbiotic relationship with that which we find ourselves in order to really be the gray man in the bush. And it's not only about, yes, you know, camouflage will work against humans, that camouflage you can buy at the store, but the best camouflage by far is a way of being. You know, it's not a visual auditory thing per se, it's a way of being, and it takes a while to take on that. That's why you can, even if a guy is all decked out in camo, just the way he moves in the bush is gonna give away the fact that he's not of the bush. You know, he's of the city trying to be in the bush. But just be mindful of your surroundings when you're out in nature. You know, if you're going against the grain, you know, it's going to be hard. But if you got to go with the grain, you know, that's the whole nomadic mentality. Because in the city mode, everything is symmetrical, everything is mathematical, everything is methodical, and when you come into nature, everything is organic, it's flowing, it's fluid, it's curved, as opposed to the linearity and all the thousands of protocols that you follow in the city, you know, the rules, the bylaws, the laws. None of that exists out here. So you're coming from a reality that's broken up into tiny different pieces that you have to put together, that you've been conditioned and trained to put together, and then you come out here to this sea of green, you know, this seamless, continuous flowing of energy that you see here. And I'm going to use that word energy because that's what it is. If you had the right set of eyes, that's what you would see. Getting into that mode and getting out of that robotic, urban dwelling type mode, it takes full immersion in the bush. You got to get away from the roadside attractions. Anyways, I hope that's been useful to you, and wish me luck on my hike. I guess this won't be uploaded until I get back, long after I get back. So, you know, if it gets uploaded, it all went well. If not, then c'est la vie. Thanks for watching. Canadian Prepper out.
Check out the Canadian Preppers Network blog, an excellent resource for survivalists and preppers.